welcome to the Infinity Bros podcast, the only podcast that's perfectly balanced, as all things should be. My name is Isaac Edlin. I am your host tonight. And with me, I have a very special guest. I have author Gordon Schmidt, who is joining us to talk about his book, Leaders Assemble Leadership in the MCU. How you doing, Gordon?
Doing great. Very excited to be on the podcast and looking forward to a fun chat.
Yes, and we have also already had a bit of a fun chat. If you want to join our Patreon for exclusive content, you can get the unedited version of this episode. So make sure you hit up our links in the show notes so you can hear exclusive content, including fully exclusive Patreon episodes. We actually just started releasing our old school off-topic gamer episodes, which are basically before there was the Infinity Bros. We were the off-topic gamers, and we tried to stream video games while hosting a podcast at the same time, and it was difficult. It wasn't very easy. So I will not say that they're very successful, but if you want access to that, to see our hot takes from pre-Infinity Bros days, make sure you check out our Patreon for that. So, you can always check out theinfinitybros.com for any other Infinity Bros needs, and all of our links in the show notes. You can hit us up on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and all of the other socials, or email infinitybrospodcast@gmail.com. All right. Got all that stuff out of the way. Sorry, that was a lot. That was a lot to intro. So welcome again, Gordon. It's great to have you on the show.
Excited to be here. Always good.
Yeah, once again. Yeah. All right.
Still here.
So to to start everything off, Gordon, this is actually a segment that I did not prepare you for. Every guest that comes on the Infinity Bros podcast must go through the Infinity Gauntlet.
Are you a heel or a baby face? If you could make any flavored Cheez-It, what would it be? Is it pronounced Grogu or Groku? If Keanu Reeves isn't in the movie, can it be star-studded? It's time for the Infinity Gauntlet, here on the Infinity Bros podcast.
So the Infinity Gauntlet is basically a barrage of questions that the Infinity Bros throw at you from some of our hosts. So we have 6 rotating hosts on the Infinity Bros podcast, and I'll just kind of get a selection of questions for you to answer. Right. And this kind of just helps us to get to know our guests a little bit, and gives you a little mind teaser to get your brain working for the rest of the episode. So there you go. Are you ready for it? Let me know.
As ready as I can be.
Okay. All right. And again, this is something I did not tell him about. This is totally off the cusp. So he's hearing these for the very first time. So this is from Infinity Bro Mark. This is your first question. If you had to be haunted by a ghost for the rest of your life, but you could choose which dead person the ghost would be, who would you choose as your ghost companion?
First person came to mind immediately is Mark Twain.
Oh,
I think Mark Twain would say a lot of funny things. Like, I'm sure they'd be hurtful at times, like 100%. Like, Mark Twain just roast people. That was his thing. It's funny now because, like, he's got all these, like, letters and stuff where he's just roasting people in articles that were famous at the time, but now we've not heard of them. So you just have really famous, like, Mark Twain seemingly punching down and, like, random people in history that you've never heard of. At the time, they mattered. So I think it'd be really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully he's punching at other people and not at you most of the time. Like, because that would be the entertaining part to, like, be walking around.
That's the worrisome part. You got to keep them. You got to keep bringing in, like, people that are more of a buffoon than you, so you make fun of them.
There you go. Exactly. So you just got to be in the right place at the right time. Always have somebody that's dumber than you around you. Basically.
Yeah. So. Well, we always try to think we're witty, so we're like, me and Mark Twain will be like, ha, those fools. It might not work out, man, but
it might not. That's a gamble, but I like it. That's definitely one that I wouldn't have thought of. So that's a pretty good one. All right, next question. This isn't from Infinity Bro Max. If you were to give the Oscar to the best movie meme of all time, what would it be? So this is I'll let you take broad strokes here. So, like, whatever you interpret as a meme, a movie meme.
Yeah, I thought of one immediately. So Queen Amidala with a right saying right.
Yeah. Oh yes.
We
Oh
do
my
that all the
gosh.
time in chat, all the time on stuff. Yeah, we share like things people do, and we're like, right, right, because it just
Solid.
comes up all the time. Right? There's
It's a
all the
solid choice.
this is the crazy world we live in. There's all this stuff. You're just like,
Right. And
I mean something
that's
else,
one of those
hopefully.
memes that transcends like Star Wars. Like you don't
Yeah,
need to be a Star Wars fan to think that meme is funny.
yeah, yeah. I'm not a big fan of that trilogy, but
Oh
it's
yeah,
it's it's so
you're
correct.
a
It's just like you're
that's
like,
right, because you so when you were in the prequel trilogy probably came out when you were in like in high school or college,
yeah,
maybe?
yeah. So I saw it in high school. Yeah, we
Okay,
watched
so
all the special editions of the original
mhm,
trilogy, and then right after got to watch these new movies that were
that makes sense
to
then.
me at least not nearly as good. Now I know you grew up with those movies, maybe they're
Yeah,
fine, but
yep.
to us that went
I
to them, we were very, very sad at the
right.
time. And
Yeah,
I
I've
did
talked
actually I
to
got yelled at in the third movie making fun of it. I watched it with my family, and then somebody afterwards was like, "You shouldn't have been talking the whole movie." So, so that's where I was at.
right. The third one, Revenge of the Sith, came out when I was like in I think I was an upperclassman in high school. I think that was what? That was like 2008 maybe, somewhere in there.
I think before then, but yeah, whenever it was.
I think I was like later in high school. So
Yeah.
that's when I kind of turned the corner and I was like, "Oh man, I guess I realize why these movies aren't that great." But like prior to that, I mean, episode 1, episode 2,
Oh
that
yeah.
was like my like elementary, middle school years. Like I was like, yes, this is Star Wars. This is the best thing ever. But man, every time it comes to that end scene prior to the Obi-Wan
Mm,
Anakin duel, when Anakin is, Padme is
yeah.
confronting Anakin, the dialogue in that scene is so bad.
Yeah. Well, I watched the trilogy
PG.
when Obi-Wan came out, that original trilogy again to give it a shot, and I was
Mhm.
like, I was so bored. I was so bored in the first
Ugh.
movie. So bored.
I
Um,
definitely can still draw enjoyment from all of them, but yeah, the some of the honestly the dialogue to me is the thing that sticks out about a lot of them. Like there's some real cheesy stuff that you got to just
yeah. Well, I just feel bad
trudge
because there's
through.
so many good actors actually in those movies too.
Yeah,
Like if you're
true.
like, oh, Samuel L. Jackson's pretty boring. Like, what movie is that true in?
Yeah,
Even like Jimmy Smith's, like Jimmy Smith is a great actor.
yeah. He
Natalie
probably
Portman is a great
yeah.
actor.
Right,
Hayden
yeah.
Christensen has done a lot of good stuff,
Mhm. Yeah.
but they're all really, really kind of it's all wooden acting in that.
Right. Yeah,
So
it's
I don't know.
it's
It's just a weird
unfortunate.
choice. I feel like it could have been an amazing movie
Right. I
if it
think
if
they still
it was
did
like
like
focused on I don't know.
and to his credit, George Lucas, like I see the vision, like it is a pretty well it's a well-crafted story. It's just a lot of politics that are not that exciting to watch. So it's kind of just like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, cool.
Well, I kind of feel like it's about politics and like trade and like George Lucas doesn't know anything about those topics to begin with.
Yeah,
So he doesn't know how to make them interesting in any way, and so
true.
it just
Yeah.
like there's somebody who could write a political thriller that'd be interesting with Emperor Palpatine, right?
Mhm.
But like
Yep.
I didn't see it on
Mhm.
screen, and I'll
Right.
tell you, the Clone Wars TV series is pretty good, and that
Yeah.
first like the mini episode Clone Wars one that was made like that's I watched that and I loved it. It's great.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah, that
Like it's
the
just
you're
the
talking about
acting is
the
great.
really early one, the kind of
It's
anime looking one?
Tversky or whatever that guy's name was. Yeah, they're like 5 minute
Yeah.
little
Oh,
ones,
those are
and they
so
put them
good.
into like
I
a little
love
bit
those.
longer now. But I watched that on Disney Plus. I was like, this is great. This is one of
This
the
is
best
awesome.
Disney
Yeah.
I've seen since the original
They make
trilogy.
and I because again, because those movies, those prequel movies came out when I was like in, elementary through high school. General Grievous, I love that dude. Like I thought
Oh
he
yeah.
was the best thing ever. And those early cartoons make him look just so like awesome. He's just
Oh
like the
yeah. He's
coolest villain ever
amazing.
in those.
Yeah.
He just like takes out like a squad of Jedi, no problem. Just
Yeah, I know
not
strong
even
feelings
trying.
about it, but after watching those, it's just like, yeah, he's pretty cool.
Yeah, he's pretty cool.
Christopher
And
Lee, Count Dooku
right. Yeah,
is pretty
yeah,
cool.
Count
Like
Dooku, yeah.
he's a great actor, and it's kind of an
And Mace
interesting
Windu.
role.
Mace Windu takes out a
Yeah,
whole
Mace Windu was
army of
pretty cool.
of droids by himself in that one, which is wild. So,
Yeah,
yeah, that's our plug. Go find those on Disney Plus and
yeah.
watch those because those are amazing. All right, sorry, we got sidetracked on Star Wars, but okay, one more question to finish off the Infinity Gauntlet here. This one is from me. If you had to pick one MCU character to fight for you, and all of the other ones are trying to attack you, who would you pick? So one MCU character to defend you from all of the rest of the MCU characters.
That's a hard one.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'll tell you. So I was first thinking Black Panther direction, but defend against everybody seems really hard, even if he's got like a good plan. You know, he's not Batman got a plan level to beat everybody. So
yeah. How much prep time are we giving Black Panther to defend you here?
So I'm gonna go with Scarlet Witch, because we've seen her kill the entire Illuminati in about 3 seconds. Not the best way to introduce Mr. Fantastic as a chump that gets taken out in like 5 seconds. But unfortunately, but Scarlet Witch could bring it. She could maybe take everybody out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you have to go with one of those like godlike power levels, because if you've got everybody coming at you, I mean, you got to be able to handle a lot. So I was thinking
do it on their own. Yeah, you don't Cap can inspire people and stuff, but
I was thinking like Thor off the top of my head, just because he's got like the power level to be able to take out like multiple heroes at a time. But yeah, Scarlet Witch, that's a absolutely solid choice.
No more MCU heroes. Snap.
Boom. Done. There you go. Perfect. Well, Gordon, you passed with flying colors. You are now through the Infinity Gauntlet. Welcome to the Infinity Gauntlet.
Things, so these things weren't quite as hard as they could be. I'm like, oh yeah,
no, they're just fun getting to know you questions.
Never answered those questions before, but they do have strong things came up.
Yeah, there you go. So that's our Infinity Gauntlet questions. Thank you so much for answering those. You passed, and you now can continue with the rest of the podcast. So I threaten people like guests with that, but nobody's ever not.
You got to kick somebody out at some point just to show.
At some point, yeah, just to like back up what we're saying. Like, hey, okay, well, sorry, that's it.
It's like every comic event, you kill some Teen Titan that hasn't appeared in 10 years, or whatever. You gotta last like.
Do something Marvel hero people know that you mean business. Exactly. So there you go. So, all right, guys. Well, a little bit of housekeeping here. If you are new listeners to the Infinity Bros podcast, thank you so much for checking us out. We do have a special rating system that I am going to plug here.
Here on the Infinity Bros podcast, everything is ranked from a 0 to 6 point scale. 0 meaning horrible, and 6 meaning absolutely excellent. If all of the Infinity Bros rank something a 6, it gets an infinity step.
So if you hear us rate things, I don't think specifically we might be rating anything, but every once in a while something random comes up like, hey, actually, we were talking about Star Wars, Gordon. What would you rate the entire prequel trilogy on a scale of 6?
I'm unwilling to publicly say that. Maybe only the Patreon people.
So if you want to know, maybe we'll add that later at the end of the Patreon episode. So yeah, he might get a little bit of blowback from that. So we'll move on. So yeah, anyways, if we come across something that has come out recently, we might end up sharing our thoughts and our ratings on it. So just wanted to give you that. Next segment we have, Gordon, is our nerd news.
Hey, Zane, I was looking into getting into this Gunpla thing. There's one called the Unicorn Banshee. What the heck is that all about? Actually, Jarrett, what you're thinking of is RX-0 Unicorn Gundam 2 Banshee, which is from the Mobile Suit Gundam. Actually, you know what? It's time for nerd news.
So just a couple pieces of news here. So the first one is that Invincible on Amazon Prime is finally back. Finally came back on March 15th, which we are recording now on March 16th on Saturday. It took a long hiatus, really interesting show running strategy. They released their first 4 episodes last fall, took a long hiatus, and finally released their first of another 4 episodes this week. So make sure you check that out. I did get to watch it last night, and it is a phenomenal episode. It just continues on. I mean, Invincible is, I was talking to Gordon about this on the Patreon version. Invincible is a fantastic show. It's also a fantastic comic. I've read part of the comic. There's like, oh gosh, I think there's like 6 compendiums. Like it's a pretty massive story. And I think I've read like half of the first compendium. So the show has already surpassed what I have read. So the timeline in the show and the comics is a little different. They definitely speed things up quite a bit in the show, but for the amount that they do that, it actually tells the story pretty much perfectly. So like comic to show wise, it is one of the best film or TV adaptations of a comic that I've ever seen in my entire life. So absolutely worth checking out. I'd give last night's episode a 5.5, kind of a return to form, because some of those earlier episodes are a little slower. So I give that a 5.5 out of 6. Definitely check that out if you guys are into Invincible. Next thing up, which I'm going to get your opinion on here, Gordon, is the recent MCU rumors for castings. So we've heard a couple names float, and this is a room. We talk about rumors all the time. All of this stuff is, never. We only obviously go on what is reported by Marvel Studios, which Marvel Studios and a couple of the big outlets like Deadline, Hollywood Reporter, maybe one or two other like really big ones that kind of only print stories if they're 99% true.
Anyone on Twitter whose picture is an egg, you're just like, they're probably right.
Yeah,
they know their uncle works at the MCU. 100%.
This one that I just pulled up here was it's a rumor, obviously, but it's where they like discussing film is a popular social media like reporting account, and on Twitter, or X as the kids now call it, they have several accounts that parody, I put in quotations for the people that can't see this, the account with like one letter change in the title of the account, like disbussing film or like, something like that. And they'll tweet something totally crazy. It'll go viral. Everybody's thinking that, oh, this is a legitimate news source that we're seeing. And obviously is not the case. So anyways, this is all rumor. We are going off of that. But 2 big castings that I wanted to, or rumor castings, or that I wanted to talk about are number 1, Ryan Gosling, and number 2, Henry Cavill. So some pretty big names. Ryan Gosling obviously has kind of always been a rumor floating around the MCU, and I've been hearing more in the past like week or so. One insider, and I say insider again with quotations for people that can't hear me, Daniel RPK is reporting that Ryan Gosling has been casted in the MCU, not in talks, not all that stuff. Still rumor, still not reported, as a fact or anything. But Gordon, what do you think about Ryan Gosling? Do you like him in the MCU? And what part do you think he was casted for, if he were?
Yeah, I saw that. I think actor-wise, he'd be cool to have in there. I'm not sure what would be a good character off the top of my head. The thing is, I kind of think with some of the actors is, with Robert Downey Jr. and Iron Man, you've got kind of like the character changes in a direction towards the actor in interesting ways of playing to their strength. I actually was trying to think of if they had said anybody he was going to be. So I was picturing him as Dr. Doom in my head. That's an interesting idea where I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense, but that right. I was trying to think of what he would do as Dr. Doom.
Yeah. It's not the conventional thing that pops into my head when I think Ryan Gosling, but honestly, he's got the acting chops that he could probably do well.
So I'm thinking Dr. Doom as kind of like Ken in the Barbie movie, an individual who thinks he's probably more of Ken is after he thinks that he knows everything in that movie versus the start.
Right. Oh yeah.
Could be Dr. Doom,
he actually gets like slightly sinister in that last part of the Barbie movie there. So
right. Like, yeah, he's going out. He's he's the man and he's got his country and you don't need anyone to stand in his way. That would be interesting. Now, you want the internet to get angry, 100%. That would happen.
There you go.
I would. That Doom could be really interesting.
It would be interesting for sure. And so we have Deadpool and Wolverine coming up this year.
Oh yeah.
And there's a lot of things floating around about how, I mean, we got a trailer that shows Deadpool is tangling with the TVA. So there's a lot of things coming out. And with the next Avengers movies being Secret Wars and potentially Battle World, there's a lot of things coming out with variants of, you know, like different multiversal counterparts of people. So like, hey, if we got Ryan Gosling as a Doctor Doom variant in like this movie, like how funny would that be? Oh my gosh,
it would be amazing.
That would be incredible. So I'm all in on that, honestly. The other one that I had heard rumblings of, and I've heard more just in the past couple days, is that they are picking up and running with a Nova project. That's been rumored for a really long time, and I've been hearing more rumblings over the past couple of days that they are going to do that. I know it was projected to be a series, but I think they're revamping a lot of their TV show.
It's really unclear on stuff what's going to be a series.
They're kind of honestly starting from square one and just scrapping everything, going back to the drawing board, and especially with the Jonathan Majors Kang stuff, like they've got a lot of work to do. I would assume that they're going to recast Kang so that they can lead up to hopefully Doctor Doom taking the role of the big bad guy in Secret Wars, Battle Worlds, like Avengers movies. But we'll see. Obviously, everything is up in the air at this point.
Well, I just think they're going to have Kang. He has to go back to his home planet, and you just Simpsons Poochie style. So that's probably what they're going to go.
Yeah.
That's what I would do, but that's why they don't give me multi-million-dollar movies to do.
Oh gosh, yeah, that would be incredible. So,
they probably banned me for saying Ryan Gosling is Doctor Doom already. So.
Blacklisted, crossed off the list. No, but yeah, then the other big name that I brought up was Henry Cavill. So obviously he's been very busy in projects coming up to now. He was in Superman and the Justice League, and rumored to continue in that role. I think it was actually confirmed that he came back as Superman about a couple weeks before James Gunn officially got the reboot under him. And then James Gunn confirmed that he will not be returning as Superman in the near future anyways. So, and then he also exited the Witcher project that he had been on for years. So those were his, like, he has been coming out with some other things here and there, but those are the two really big roles that have been taking up his time.
A Warhammer series he was going to be on.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that was.
I know nothing about Warhammer. I just heard and it was like, wow.
He's a big fan, so I don't know anything about it either, but he's a big fan. So
I remember hearing about it. I've heard nothing since. So I don't even know if that's real anymore.
Yeah, maybe it's in the back of his head. He's still holding on to that. But anyways, a lot of things have been reported about Henry Cavill coming to the MCU, and there is specifically one role that I've been hearing a lot of buzz about, and that was Captain Britain. Which makes sense because, Henry Cavill obviously is British, so that would make sense. But do you have any ideas about Henry Cavill and where he would fit in the MCU?
Well, I've come out with outside the box ones so far, but I'm going to go inside the box to say a Squadron Supreme, Hyperion, maybe Gal Gadot and some other people could play that, and you could have. It would be really interesting or funny to grab some DC people and throw them in a Squadron Supreme team to play that in the Marvel universe.
That would be interesting.
It's just too funny to me to not suggest that one because I would love it so much. Yeah, Gal Gadot in that. Jason Momoa could be in that.
All of the DCEU cast-offs that James Gunn is not recasting. We'll just take them all.
Yeah, I'd be worried the Marvel Universe would just go Scarlet Witch on all of them and they'd be all dead immediately. But I love the Squadron Supreme. It would be an interesting thing to do that 80s series. with in the Marvel universe in some way with those characters. But it'd be hard for me to believe they'll do that, but it would be interesting.
Yeah, that would be interesting. The other thing that has been floating around for a while, and this is even pre these rumors, like people have been talking about this since Henry Cavill was Superman, but there have been buzz and rumors about him potentially playing a Wolverine variant in Deadpool versus Deadpool and Wolverine. So
yeah, I had heard that.
there's been a lot of buzz about Wolverine variants in that movie, so this could be just total smoke and not viable at all. And obviously, it's still a rumor. So
well, it makes me think about too him being Sentry. It'd be interesting to do Sentry in the Void with him too. It'd be an interesting
so
type
many
of role. The Sentry's kind of hasn't done much in recent memory. He was big, he was really big for a bit, especially like the Bendis type era.
Yeah, yeah.
Where it's an interesting thing, especially it would give some resonance if it was
right. It was almost up in the air a little bit because Stephen Yeun was actually casted as Sentry for the Thunderbolts movie that's coming out in 2025 or 6 now. I don't know what date they're on now, but then he actually backed out, and I think they actually announced a casting that I don't remember off the top of my head. But I mean.
The Thunderbolts movie doesn't come together enough in my mind that it exists.
Right, yeah, and I
know what's going on there.
Vaguely remember hearing that they're starting filming soon, but I don't know all the details on that, so we won't comment anymore about that. But yeah, he's like the perfect like you mentioned Hyperion as well, like Superman type, role. So that Sentry would be perfect for him, and he's actually a fantastic actor outside of the superhero stuff that he's done. So having him portray Sentry would be really interesting to get like the kind of when he's at his like base alter ego or whatever, he's kind of like just a timid guy, and then when he flips into the Void, you got the evil type side. So that would be really interesting role for him to play.
Oh yeah, Squadron Supreme would be an interesting ad, especially if we're going multiverse wise with that. Which actually, this made me think about The Rock for Wonder Man would have been interesting.
That would have been interesting, yeah.
We're talking about where The Rock would fit, and I'm like, him being a big Hollywood star. That actually makes so much sense, actually.
Right. Now that I think about it, Wonder Man is another project that's still in development as of right now, and I think they have somebody casted for that, but I don't remember off the top.
I thought so, and then it sounded like it was really dead. But then recently it sounded like they're like it's really going to happen.
Yeah, so I don't know. I would have to look and do some more research on that to see if they actually cast anybody or if they just had if rumors are just floating around. But that I think, as far as I know, I think that's still in development. That was one of the projects that they specifically brought back on amid all of the other projects that they're kind of shelving. So I don't know. Yeah, we'll see how it all shakes out. But yeah, that was our nerd news segment. Had a couple fun castings to talk about, which we're always willing to chat about on the Infinity Bros podcast. So thanks, Gordon. That was some good conversation there. Next thing we got up is the 2024 Oscars. We're just going to do a quick recap, talk about some of the winners and all that good stuff. So Gordon, I wanted to just reiterate with you here. You have watched Oppenheimer, right?
Yeah, Oppenheimer and the Barbie movie.
Okay. Well, Oppenheimer's really the only thing that you really need to have watched to kind of have a conversation about the Oscars.
Yeah, one at least.
Yeah. So, yes, basically sweeps the Oscars, winning 7, including Best Director and Best Picture. So, just masterful performance, and the movie itself. Actually, that's something we can do. What did you think of Oppenheimer, and how would you rate it?
So, I love Christopher Nolan overall. I think there's some amazing performances in the movie. Another movie about a flawed white guy that we should, love and sort of ignore his problems. Yeah. So Christopher Nolan has done so much cool work over the years. Right. To me, this is really a very Oscar bait type movie. It reminds me very much of Beautiful Mind. And man, I'll tell you, with a 2-year-old too, trying to get 3 hours to watch that movie was a lot of time in my life. Like
I feel that.
It was very hard. It was very hard to do.
Yeah. It's
so,
not even to mention in theaters too, because like you go to theaters, that's a
in
whole
theaters,
like 5-hour event that you have to prepare for.
My cable company gave me Peacock because they're really ripping me off on price. So they're just like, here's free Peacock for you. So I got to see it there.
Nice.
But yeah, it was great to see Robert Downey Jr. win. It's great to see Christopher Nolan get, awards and all that. But to me, it's like it feels like Beautiful Mind #2 with kind of a less interesting aspect ultimately. Matt Damon was great in the movie too. Matt Damon was great. He was a lot of fun, but it to me, it didn't really take a good stand on what matters. Is it we shouldn't have made the nuclear bomb? Is it we should have? It was necessary. Is it you shouldn't be friends with communists? I don't know if anyone's still concerned about that. They were very concerned. I'm not sure. Right. I talked to my co-author of my book, Cy, on this, and he was more positive on it. But to me, I just felt like it's the type of movie that wins Oscars. It's a biopic about some dude who was not perfect but did something important. And we get so many of those movies, They're Oscar bait, but to me it's not memorable. It's not a memorable movie.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I kind of agree with you, honestly. I thought it was a phenomenal movie. I thought it was great.
Acting is amazing. It's great.
Cinematically, it is a masterpiece. But I just think I don't know if it's not the direction. Like, I think Christopher Nolan did a fantastic job with this movie. But again, like you said, just the viewpoint that we're seeing this movie through, just, I don't know. And it is meant to kind of like put you at unease, basically, like about the whole thing. But you're right. Like Oppenheimer in it doesn't really take a stand on anything. He just is kind of like, it is what it is. And
the thing is that they make it almost entirely about, evil Robert Downey Jr. is hurting this guy.
Yeah.
That's kind of the frame, and it's a weird frame on it. Ultimately, because, Oppenheimer stuff was partly because a lot of people in government didn't want him saying anti-nuke stuff and that. So it just ends up being like two dudes that are having a fight with each other versus a more complex discussion of, the issues of nuclear war, development, or what do you do? Because that's part of the movie, right? It's kind of like, we got to develop it because the Nazis are going to develop it, or, the Russians are going to develop it anyways.
Exactly.
And so Oppenheimer kind of goes from we got to develop anyways to be like, let's not develop. Maybe the Russians won't. And so, to me, a more particular picture on what's the lesson of this, or how should we learn, or, even if it's an indictment of somebody would be helpful. I think Strauss, unfortunately, ends up being more of a straw man for like, that guy's a jerk because he got insulted, which I heard that dude was pretty petty in real life in general.
Right. Yeah.
But like, it also was like a legitimate disagreement between those two. I was looking at the Wikipedia of it, which is interesting, is like, Strauss never wanted to be going up for something he'd have to be in front of the Senate and get nominated, because he thought scientists hate me and I'm controversial. So the whole part where he thinks he's going to be fine is like not accurate in reality. Like the whole movie is kind of like, ha, see, you're overconfident, but like he was not. Like he kind of he probably thought going in he was dead in the water. But Eisenhower really wanted him to be part of the cabinet. Eisenhower offered him a whole bunch of important positions and stuff. So I don't know. So it's interesting to me. Yeah. But that's what those movies do too, right? You kind of you soften the edges of your lead. Like, I think it's good. Like, a lot of these movies will cut out important things of that the person who's the main lead was did bad things, or adultery, or part of their sexuality in some of those movies, right? And so I don't think Oppenheimer was presented as a perfect person, which is good. But then it was also multiple people made excuses, right? His brother's like, "Oh, you're a bad father, but you're the greatest physicist in the world, so who cares?" And his wife's like, "They can't make a bomb. You can on your own," which I also don't think is the correct thing to learn from stuff like the Manhattan Project. As a as a social scientist, not a hard scientist in that direction, like collaboration, working together, all these ideas is crucial.
Well,
These movies make it, it's one dude, right? I thought he made the bomb on his own just for fun, is what it seemed like from that movie, and it's not, right? Not just people listening to his brilliance and acting on it as kind of. So
yeah, and they like showed that in the movie that he's bringing in all these like brilliant minds, but like you said, over and over and over and over in the movie, they make it clear that this would not have happened without
yeah,
Oppenheimer,
well, and it's
right? So
leadership
yeah,
too. Like the stuff he doesn't. What I'd love to have seen more in the movie was how does he lead people, or what is the
hmm
rep. So like
right,
like most of the stuff he does, he's a jerk to people, but for all the scientists get along and they do well together and they do this amazing thing, morally questionable but amazing thing. But like
yeah,
we don't see any of that why that happens. And to me, I think that's because Oppenheimer was a good collaborator with these scientists. He understood them. They didn't. It wasn't that they didn't respect him, right? Or that they
mhm.
didn't think that he was a good collaborator. His flaws are not part of that. And I would have loved to see more of how he worked with the team and how that versus he's a big jerk. We all hate him, but he's the smartest guy in the world type stuff
Yeah,
is unfortunately how we get a lot of really crappy leaders. Um,
yeah, yeah. There you go, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit here. So, yeah. But anyways, again, sweeps the Oscars, winning Best Picture, Best Director, Best Supporting Actor, Best Supporting, Supporting Actor and Robert Downey Jr., Best Actor with Cillian Murphy. Uh, my list doesn't include the other ones, but I think it also won. No, it didn't win Best Costuming. That was Poor Things.
mhm.
That's 1, 2, 3, 4. And won a bunch of other ones. So
Yeah,
a
no
lot.
actress awards, of course, because it doesn't
No,
pass the Bechdel
yeah,
test.
it does not. You're correct. Uh, so best again, you mentioned too that Robert Downey Jr. Wins his first supporting actor or first Oscar at all
Yeah,
for supporting actor, and he is phenomenal in his role as Strauss in that movie. Like they did exactly what you said that they made him want to be a hateable character, and he absolutely was, and he played his part. It was a phenomenal job by him. So finally gets it, and finally gets
yeah.
his first Oscar win, which is well deserved after a pretty amazing career with, gosh, what was he in Endgame was what, 2018, 10-year career in the MCU.
Yeah.
So just, a bunch
Yeah,
of
he
phenomenal
definitely deserves an
performances
award
there.
on it. Yeah, the acting, it's superb acting.
Mhm.
There's a lot of great performances in that film. So
Yeah. And I think there's like an aspect to the Oscars too, where they're like, hey, all these performances are about equal, but like, hey, this guy, maybe we'll just make this his like lifetime achievement award.
yeah, yeah, and
Like,
that can
let's
certainly
give this
play
to
into some of
him.
that
Just
stuff too.
give the edge over here. So, and that I think that honestly was part of Nolan winning director too, because this was his first Oscar as
Mm.
best director, which
Yeah.
is kind of bonkers when you look at his filmography. He's got
Oh
some
yeah.
incredible movies, and this is the first one that he has won best director for, and I believe it's the first one he's won best picture for. So
Yeah, yeah, I believe so. Yeah, I've been with Nolan a long time. I saw Memento in theaters, and then bought it at the DVD store. Oh, the VHS store because it's VHS, his first movie following as well. So like I've been with Nolan a long time. So to me, I feel a little sad. This is what
mhm,
gets rewarded, even though it's
mhm,
a
right.
beautiful looking film and well
Right.
acted and well
Well,
done.
like,
It's
yeah,
just
like I mentioned,
story to me is
sometimes
weird.
it seems like it's they're just like, hey, like you've had an amazing career. Your movie was really good
Yeah.
this year. Here, let's give it to
Well, it's
you
really
for.
interesting to have a movie related to nuclear weapons that to me just has very little opinion on it or perspective on what we
Mhm,
should think. There's a whole
right.
bunch of movies that are very anti or even some that you could see as pro, but this to me it's a very muted it's just for the character drama to some degree, which is a
Right.
missed opportunity at least to my
Yeah.
mind.
Oh, so I just pulled up a list here. So a couple of the other categories that Oppenheimer also won were Best Original Score by Ludwig Göransson, which that is well deserved. He did have a
Mhm.
phenomenal score in that movie. Um, and Best Cinematography, again, it's a cinematic masterpiece.
Yeah.
So like,
Mhm.
yeah, deserved. And Best Film Editing. So, all of those things obviously were worth
Well,
winning.
Barbie won Best Song, so that's all that really matters.
Yes, that was the other thing you mentioned. You said that you you also watched Barbie. Best Original Song was won by what was it? Made For, written by Billie Eilish. That's her second
it's
Oscar-winning
insane,
song.
man. Yeah.
And she's what? Like, I don't even. She's the youngest person to ever win.
Yeah.
Two
Well, her brother, who did the song too, is the second youngest now because he was on her other song that won.
That is wild.
That's like, it's crazy. Yeah. I didn't realize they wrote together.
But also, that was nominated for Best Original Song was "I'm Just Ken," which Ryan Gosling performed. We mentioned him.
That's
before.
A great performance. It
was so stinking good. Ryan Gosling is just, and I'm not like an Oscar guy, so like I catch all of the highlights on social media and stuff afterwards. I've watched that video of Ryan Gosling performing "I'm Just Ken" more times than I would like to admit. It is a lot of times, but I found that stuck in my head for like the next week after that. Just singing "I'm Just Ken." Yeah, it's good stuff. But yeah, he's a performer, dude. Like he sang that better than a lot of like actual singers sing their own songs. that was so stinking good. Understandable that it probably didn't win the Oscar, but like, hey, he still performed it really well.
Oh yeah. So. Well, I feel like if they had voted after they did the performances, he might have won.
Maybe that might have swayed.
Really happy in the moment. The other song is a beautiful song, though. So it's more deserving probably from that perspective. But the Ken one, the showmanship is amazing on that one.
Mm-hmm, So just recap a few of these other awards here. We mentioned Cillian Murphy, Robert Downey Jr. for Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor. Best Actress was won by Emma Stone in Poor Things. That's her second Best Actor. Or actress, excuse me, in that's and she's only 30 something too. Like that's pretty phenomenal for her. I haven't seen Poor Things, so that's on my list of things to watch, but they say that she did a phenomenal job. So second Oscar for Emma Stone. Best Supporting Actress was won by Divine Joy Randolph. She was a supporting actress in The Holdovers, which was with Paul Giamatti. That was I was able to watch that one because that was one that came to streaming. Like I think it came to streaming the same time it came to theaters, if I remember correctly. So that one I was able to watch on Peacock like pretty early on last year.
On Peacock, actually, when I watched Oppenheimer, they then started The Holdovers immediately, and I was like, I can't watch more right now. But I kind of think
you already sat through 3 hours. You got to take.
It sounds like a fun movie from what I saw.
So. Yeah, it is. It is a great movie. Paul Giamatti he's always a fun actor to watch. I love him, but she did great in that movie. Absolutely worth checking out. Best International Feature Film was won by The Zone of Interest. Not seen that one. Best Animated Feature was The Boy and the Heron, which was a Miyazaki Studio Ghibli film.
I got to see that sometime.
I haven't seen that one either, but that's also his second Oscar for Best Animated Feature, and he was not at the Oscars both times. So, and fair enough, like it's in America, and I think the first time he was protesting something specifically, probably one of the wars we were in at that time. I'm sure
one of those wars.
One of those wars.
Yeah, probably.
And so I'm assuming the reasoning for him not being there is along the same line. So like that's completely fair.
Well, Taylor Swift made it all the way from Japan to a concert to get to the Super Bowl, so I don't know. I guess Taylor's got more hustle.
Well, she probably also.
That's not something I can publicly say.
Yeah. In fairness, Taylor Swift probably would have taken a jet anywhere that she was going to go. So,
that is true. Yeah. He's coming back home at least,
Yeah, true. So continuing on, Best Documentary Feature was 20 Days in Mariupol. Didn't see that one either. Best Original Screenplay went to Anatomy of a Fall. I never got around to that one. Best Adapted Screenplay was won by American Fiction. And Cord Jefferson was the guy that wrote the screenplay. I am not like a guy who knows like writers and screenplays and stuff like this, but he went up and made a speech about how Hollywood should start making more movies that cost less. And I was like, this guy knows what he's talking about here. Like he was like, instead of making $200 million movies make 4 $50 million movies, or, you know,
yeah,
20 or 10 $20 million movies, or whatever, you know, like that kind of stuff. And I was like, this guy, yeah, spitting facts, because the next one that I'm going to mention, Godzilla minus one, won best visual effects, and their budget was $15 million. You know, as opposed to Oppenheimer, which I'm sure was 200 million at least, or you know, we were talking a little bit on our Patreon about the Marvels last year, which 275 million for its budget. So movies these days are not, I was going to say they're not cheap to make, but I'm assuming those budgets are way over inflated for reasons they probably shouldn't be. So obviously Godzilla minus one proved that you can make a very, very good movie with, and Godzilla minus one I have not seen, but so many people are saying like this is the best monster movie they've ever seen. Like a lot of people were touting it as like the best movie they watched last year. So definitely one that's on my list to watch, but just goes to show that, hey, yeah, you don't need to, you know, blow a ton of money to make a movie that people are going to love. So, yeah. So what else we got here? Best animated short film, War is Over. Best live action short film went to The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar, which is directed by Wes Anderson.
Wes Anderson's first win was for that short.
Really? That was his first win?
Yeah, okay. Some people were saying that's a category Wes Anderson should not win because it's for smaller things, but you're like, dude, he hasn't won one yet. It's okay.
Right.
Like if he wins it next year, it'll be unfair, but like, you know, just once is good. He needs to win more.
Yeah. That is so interesting. I did not know that. So that's funny. Best documentary in a short subject was The Last Repair Shop. Best costume design was Poor Things, which was the movie Emma Stone won her Best Actress for. Best makeup and hairstyling and best productions design were also won by Poor Things. So Poor Things did pretty well at the Oscars. And then the last category that I have here is best sound, which was won by The Zone of Interest. Also was the one that won the best international feature film. So yeah, a lot of great films in there. Definitely ones that I have on my list. What was a movie that was nominated for best picture that's on your list that you want to see next year? Or see, I shouldn't say next year. See what's on your list for movies to see.
Well, I thought of one when you were mentioning them.
Oh, here I'll list them off for you here. So you already watched Oppenheimer and Barbie.
Yeah.
The Holdovers is
one. Holdovers definitely, because we talked about it. That's
we talked about that one. Yeah,
that absolutely. I thought I had one already. Yeah, so Holdovers, I'd love to see.
American Fiction, The Zone of Interest, Barbie, Poor Things, Past Lives, Anatomy of a Fall, Maestro. That was the one that Bradley Cooper played. Blanking on his name, but the Jewish director. Gosh, I cannot remember his name, but that's okay. And Killers of the Flower Moon was the other one, Martin Scorsese.
Flower Moon I'd like to see. That's another one.
That one I think is on Apple TV Plus right now. So if you've got all of the platforms, you could watch that one.
Apple TV is the one where I'm like, never had it, so I see something like, I guess I'll never watch that. So hopefully they release stuff.
Here's the thing, though. We're big proponents of Apple TV Plus and the Infinity Rose podcast because. And they don't have a lot, granted. Like, there's not like a huge library of original content on Apple TV Plus, but the stuff that they have is very good. I don't know if you've heard of Ted Lasso, but that
Ted Lasso is something I'd love to see. I forgot
the nation. Like last 2 years, well, probably 3 years ago.
We talk about it quite a bit. Of people.
Leadership. Big leadership TV show there. So you're gonna have to watch that one.
Well, I wish we just we buy the streaming sites and keep them. There's a lot of people that like cancel one and then get one per month.
Right.
Like if we were doing that, it would actually be more helpful to kind of hit all the big shows at least.
Yeah, and there's Apple TV Plus is actually a platform that you can you can get a lot of free trials for places.
Oh,
If you buy an app, this is obviously, I'm not advocating go buy an iPhone so you could get Apple TV Plus, but like
he gets
if you
10%
buy,
for every iPhone you buy. So buy,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, right.
that'd be a good deal,
Code
man.
the Infinity Bros. No, just kidding.
Infinity Bros sponsored by Apple.
But if you
Nice.
buy an Apple product, they
Yeah.
usually give you a certain amount of like
Oh,
Apple
yeah,
TV
that's
Plus
true.
for
Yeah.
free. And this is a random thing too, and I don't know if they do this anymore, but when I bought my PlayStation 5 a few years ago, I got like 6 months of Apple TV Plus for
Oh,
free.
hmm,
And I
well,
think that was honestly how I started
yeah.
using Apple TV Plus. And then I realized how much good content was on there. So I was like, oh, okay, well, this is probably worth keeping. But yeah, they have a ton of great shows. And actually, one that just came out last year was Monarch Legacy. It's the Godzilla TV show
Oh, yeah, I've heard good things
that,
about that one too.
yeah, people have been I haven't gotten around to watching it, but people have been saying really good things about it. So some big TV shows on Apple TV Plus. So if you get a chance to get a free trial,
Oh, yeah, I should
I
get a
would
trial
absolutely,
sometime. That'd be a good
yeah, I
time.
would absolutely recommend watching those things. But Killers of the Flower Moon is streaming on Apple TV Plus right now. So, and then Past Lives was actually another one that I saw last year. That was like a romance, I guess.
Hmm.
I don't think you can categorize it as a rom-com, but it was with Greta Lee and Tou, I think is how you say his name. But they play these basically couple that's kind of like, it plays on the like meant to be kind of soulmate
Ooh.
aspect. And at the end of the and actually this is spoilers, so I probably shouldn't say anything. But at the end of the movie is like not really what you kind of expect to happen.
Oh,
And so that was it was I'm not a big like romance guy. I'm not going to go like seek out like drama like movies to watch or anything like
oh,
that.
sure.
But that one is one that I thought was really beautiful and enjoyable. So but yeah, those are the ones that I have watched of the category. Killers of the Flower Moon's on my list too. Infinity Bro Jarrett's a big
A reincarnate lovers that would be interesting is, I don't know how familiar you are with Hawkman and Hawkwoman setup,
yeah.
but at least in one version of the setup, it's like every time they find each other, and then like that dude kills them every single time. It's like
Yeah,
the thing which would be like the most
hunts them
insane.
down.
Yeah, like it's just like every life is like, we found each other, like this dude's gonna kill us now. Like I feel like you could
Yes.
make some amazing movie out of that somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting.
That's a great
Interesting.
idea. Here you go, James Gunn. I know you're listening. Here's your next idea. You can credit Gordon Schmidt.
Yeah,
with
10% of the gross is all Matthew. So.
That's all we're asking. So, all right, and that's our recap of the 2024 Oscars. So, next thing we're going to talk about is actually Gordon's book. So, Gordon, you wrote along with your co-author, which you can tell us a little bit about him as well. Leaders Assemble: Leadership in the MCU, exploring effective leadership practices through popular culture. And I mean, we're the Infinity Bros. We literally have a podcast based on the MCU. So, I mean, I saw this and I was like, oh yeah, this is something that we need to jump on. Gordon, I'm very excited that you were able to come and talk to us about this. So tell us a little bit about kind of the initial what brought this book about, and your co-author too, like how you guys kind of came up with the idea to write this book.
Yeah, sure. So the secret origin of the book, I can certainly provide that. It'll take a whole mini series probably, but yeah. So basically, my buddy Cyan Islam and I, who wrote this book, we're both professors. We're both in this field of industrial organizational psychology, and we both teach. We teach in college and do research. And so, we've been writing about sort of how do you do research, outreach related to research. How do you get people to understand these ideas? And the idea kind of is making that understandable. And so we wrote about, as you often do, we wrote an academic article about how do you make people outside academics understand something, which is not always the most useful because then no one outside is actually learning anything. We're just saying, hey, I hope somebody does this. So the book and some of our work with podcasts and even blogs is kind of the work. It's okay, how do we translate these ideas that research has found on a topic like leadership and actually get people to understand it in a way that's interesting and engaging, of what we do. And so we just heard about this series that was just starting, that Emerald Publishing is doing, exploring leadership through popular culture. And so I said to Cy, and Cy and I are buddies. We talk all the time. I was like, hey, we both love the Marvel Universe. It seems like it'd be a great thing to write related to leadership. There's all these ideas. Let's do a book proposal. And so Cy was like, I've never written a book or even a book chapter. I was like, don't worry about it. I did one back in the day, a few years ago. We'll submit, and if they like it, great. If not, and so yeah, they loved our idea of doing this book. And so the idea and how the book gets structured is every chapter teaches you about an aspect of leadership, and we pair it with a movie from the Marvel Universe or two. And so then we talk about, okay, this is the theory, and this is kind of how you see it in the movie. And then the last part is we kind of try to make you think about, okay, what do I do? How's my life where this might actually apply? And so that's kind of the piece that we have with it is we want this to be a fun book that you can read and just have a good time reading it, but also you kind of learn these leadership things that you might be able to apply. And it does get us into a little bit of the thing that us comic fans love, which is like kind of debating who's a good leader in the Marvel Universe, who's the strongest, or what's to some degree we talk about topics related to who made the right choices, because that's the thing I think with superheroes too is we like to talk about them and we're like, do we agree with Cap or Iron Man, who was right in the Civil War? And
that's making a resurgence on Twitter again right now. Actually,
that stuff just comes back and back, or Thanos was
really
right
does.
type discussions. There's all that, and we talk about in the book, we got in our chapter we talk about Killmonger versus Black Panther, who's a good leader, who's right, what are the bases of power? How do they try to influence people? And so, yeah, it was a great thing to do. It was a good excuse to watch all the Marvel movies again,
yes.
and talk about, kind of think about these movies with that lens. And so, with us being researchers on leadership in the workplace, we think about that already. But to have the book, we then were thinking even more, okay, I'm watching Iron Man. What's going on? What's kind of the path of him even more? And so, kind of like how a lot of podcasts work, right? Is you end up thinking about stuff a lot deeper than when you just watch it. And so, we talk about Iron Man in the book. To me, I thought about actually Tony Stark a lot different, where the Iron Man movies are all about he tries to give up being Iron Man, right? He's a good person, and so therefore he should be like financing good causes and just be a rich guy making nice things. But every movie ends up being Iron Man again, right? Why is that? Well, because Tony Stark is not a sit back guy, lead from the back, just be an investor, right? He needs to be out there leading the charge and putting himself at risk. He's miserable when he's just the guy paying money, right? He needs to be out there. He wants to. It's an important part of what he does. And he is a flashy guy. He is a guy that's sarcastic and and when he tries to clamp that down, he's miserable on it. It's not what he wants to do. And so he needs that meaning in his life and what he does. And through the movies, he kind of figures that out. And so I think, that end game when he goes out, spoilers if you haven't seen things from pre-pandemic, right?
Yeah, I think we're out of the window. So
I hope so. There's probably somebody online who complains about something. That's how it goes,
probably.
Right? Star Wars first movie spoilers are wrong, probably. But he goes out there even though he could definitely die, even though he's got a family, because he feels like that's who I am and what I have to do. I've got to put myself at risk. And so to me, we talk about that really, this idea of authentic leadership, being who you are, not trying, and trying to sort of embrace the person you are, what you're good and bad at. And so Tony's sitting back on his, in his mansion and not doing things that would make him miserable. It's not what he wants to be. He's got to be out there, even though we might say arguably he could do more good, kind of like the whole Bruce Wayne should just invest in the city, not be Batman. You could say that argument, but the way Bruce is, that doesn't really work for him. It's not going to fit his need. It's not going to fulfill, what he wants to do. Right. So yeah, that's what we do in each chapter, kind of talk about a movie or two, talk about these concepts. And, you see, okay, Captain America is a servant leader, or, we got a lot of interesting discussions about stuff that happens in the films and how it relates to being a leader. and being leadership. So we talk about leadership being influencing other people, and you don't have to be the boss to do this. And we all do that in our jobs a lot. We just don't think about it.
The Marvel Cinematic Universe is such a great example of leadership in so many ways because it's so big. You see a lot of different types of leadership, which you can pick out almost any intellectual property and find aspects of leadership in them from somebody in the film or the TV show or whatever. But like, you have just such a vast selection when you come to the MCU, and you talk about like either Thor or Black Panther in that king kind of leadership role to the like team leadership with the Guardians of the Galaxy, and then going further into the Avengers being like a singular team leader like Iron Man or Captain America. Like, there's so many great opportunities for seeing the leadership in these. So I think you guys picked a great topic to write your first book on. It's a lot of great examples in here.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it was a lot of fun to write. It was a pleasure to watch the movies again too. And I like, they hold up pretty well. I think they're all still a lot of fun mostly through the Marvel universe. So
yeah.
It was cool.
So that was really the reason why you wrote this book, so you could just watch the rest of the movies over again.
It definitely justified getting Disney Plus, because we definitely needed them to watch the movie, and it hasn't went away since. So
there you go. I need to do a full rewatch at some point, because I keep thinking in my head that Thor: The Dark World is the worst MCU movie, but I really would like to watch it again and like kind of compare it to some of these more recent ones that we've been getting, and just like see how my perspective has changed over the whole course of the MCU, because I very highly doubt that I've watched Thor: The Dark World since it came out in theaters. So and that was, gosh, what, it was probably like 2012 13, somewhere in there.
It's a different situation. I feel that way. Iron Man 2 I actually liked quite a bit at the time, but I do think it's a pretty weak film when you watch it now, despite some good performances. Sam Rockwell's kind of fun. Mickey Rourke's kind of fun too. And so there's some good points, but it is definitely one of the weaker in terms of doing stuff. And there's like the whole like, oh, Tony Stark's just gonna do some race car stuff now. Like, I guess it's like, oh, billionaires do crazy stuff, which is very true. But also sort of just a really weird way to do it.
It really was. I know that part of the movie always is so weird to me. I was just like, wait, what? Wait, he's just like going to race now? Like, what the heck?
Dude, he got Mickey Rourke and his parent for whatever reason. Sam Rockwell threatens the parent at one point. It's just weird. I don't know.
Oh yeah, that's a pretty wild one.
Films. Well, at the time I was just thrilled. Iron Man 1 was a great movie. Iron Man 2 came out and it was fun. That was good, but now we've had enough movies where I'm like, that was kind of weak. And at the time, people, it's been kind of on that list of weaker movies. But I do think it was still probably more fun than Thor: Dark World, which I watched within the last 3 years, but I still don't remember much of what happened in that movie.
Neither do I. That's why I think it would be interesting to go back and watch it again, because apparently it was so forgettable of a movie that I don't remember almost anything that happens in it. So it would be interesting. And also with Loki and all the events that have transpired in phase 4, 5, whatever we're in now. It would be really interesting to see his full character arc going back to, the first Thor movie, where he is a true villain leading up to the Avengers, and then kind of the starting. I would assume, looking back on things, that the start of his redemption arc is in Thor: Dark World, but again, I don't really remember that. So I guess we'll have to find out when I go back to rewatch it. So, but yeah, lots of fun stuff to glean from this book. And what would you say to somebody who is looking to maybe improve their leadership skills, and how could this book help them?
Well, and I think with a lot of stuff is that we spend a lot of time in, sort of our world looking at CEOs and like the top leaders in the world, and act like, well, I'm not the CEO of, Disney, so I can't be a leader, or I can't do that. And, I think the discussion with Oppenheimer comes up here as well, in just the sense of like, if you're the most brilliant person in the whole world at something, then you're also going to be a good leader. And it really disempowers us, I think. And so I think that's what we try to build in the book. A lot of people in these Marvel movies that you don't always think of the leader, or people that, that the leaders struggle, is to me a really helpful thing in your own development. And so, yeah, it might be with your coworkers. You influence them or you help them, or even with your family or your friends group, or, your podcast group. You might engage in leadership with them ultimately.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so that's what I talk to my students a lot about, is my students thinking about when they've been a leader or people they've interacted with that they might have not, didn't have the official title. And so I think something like our book is nice because you see these examples. You could think about your own leaders you've seen, or people that you didn't recognize as a leader at the time, but actually were somebody that had impact on you and what you did. And they were a leader to you. Maybe they were a mentor, and it just didn't seem that way. And so, I think of leadership a lot is it's something that you practice. It's something you get better at. It's something you got to do. And so if you go into situations and don't think about the influence you have or the power you might have, you just kind of go through it and you don't learn from it. But a lot of situations you're in, you can think about, okay, what influence do I have? What could I do? What would be helpful, as well as what would help my development. And so I always think about people thinking long term of what you're doing. Is it's not next week you're probably not going to be in a new leadership role, although sometimes you are. But in 5 years, if you've never tried to build those things, you won't be ready when the opportunity might hit you in the
True.
same way. And so that's what
Yeah.
I would say, is thinking about and trying to get better. And yet self-awareness, we talk about that in the movie, even related to Tony Stark, is what do you care about? What are you good at? What do you need to get better at?
Yeah.
And, somebody like Pepper Potts in the Iron Man movies, who doesn't buy his hype, is really helpful for his development, because he needs that. He's always going to be an arrogant and sarcastic dude.
Needs
But he
somebody to
often
bring him
needs
down.
sometimes for somebody to call him on that, because, as we see in some of the conflict in Civil War as well, sometimes it's like, well, I'm paying the bills, you better listen. And that might get you people to follow you, but not necessarily motivated, not necessarily for long, and not their best work. And we often want people to do their best and be motivated, because, yeah, you can leave your job, you can do something else. And that's what people do over time, or they're just doing the motions in their work. Man, I know so many people in jobs, right, that are just like,
Yeah.
I'm doing the bare minimum to get through. I'm just going through that shift. It's the money, it's all that matters.
Right.
And it's unfortunate, because most jobs, there's something meaningful in it that you could do, that we could focus on, or that, and leaders in part can inspire you in those directions to see that. And I think too often we just tell people what to do and think, they'll they're either motivated or they'll do it because I told them. And that's not the best way to get people motivated or caring.
Lot of wisdom and nuggets in this book beyond what you've shared on our podcast here. So
Yeah.
thank you so much. Yeah, it has been a pleasure to talk to you. And you mentioned on our Patreon that you have also an Avatar The Last Airbender book as well.
Yeah, we've got an Avatar The Last Airbender book. We're submitting it by the end of April to our publisher.
Wow, let's go.
So that hopefully that comes out towards the end of this year, I'd expect. But yeah, that's a very interesting franchise to be looking at as well, because there's a lot of leadership stuff in there.
Right.
And it's very different from the MCU in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I honestly, with it too, you've got Avatar and you've got Legend of Korra, which has a lot of different aspects on it, which is really interesting, because you got Aang is kind of on his own. There's no structure around him, while Korra kind of get the opposite, where you've got all these old, often dudes telling her what to do, or what she should be doing, or what she should care about, or you should meditate. And so it's a really interesting to kind of look at that contrast with this. So we talk about that some in the book as well. We got a whole chapter kind of on female leadership and some of those issues that can come up, where it's like Korra's not like Aang, so therefore she gets flack on it. But that doesn't mean she can't be effective as an avatar. That doesn't mean, it's just people are different. And I think that's a big thing too with leadership in general. Not all leaders look the same or act the same. We got to figure out our own strengths and what that is. and it's not always going to be the same way we do it. Or groups, an inspirational speech of one group might be just laughed at by another group. I think about that in the Guardians of the Galaxy all the time. I think Captain America giving an inspirational speech, I think the Guardians would laugh at him most of the time. That's just
I mean, they're already laughing at Star-Lord most of the time when he's giving his speeches. So
Star-Lord
be laughing at
is one of the least effective at leadership. But when they're working together and kind of figuring out with each other, that's what they need to do. So Star-Lord's a good leader for that group because of his nature. Now, I think it is interesting, the what if issue where Black Panther is a better leader potentially for them because he's different. He's a different person than that. And I'd be very curious to see his shared leadership in that environment, which we don't get to see within that issue.
Which is sad because that's a really fun episode of What If. But
it was a fun.
I digress.
it was a good episode of that series.
Well, thank you so much, Gordon, and it has been a pleasure to chat with you. Where can we find your book, Leaders Assemble?
So Leaders Assemble, it's available on most online booksellers. Amazon, of course, is a big one, but it's also at Walmart and Barnes & Noble. And it's interesting to see it on eBay. You can find it on eBay too.
There you go.
Weird to just see like listings for my book on eBay as well. I don't know if they're like resellers, so maybe I would get the commission or something. But still, it's all over the place in a few areas, so it's nice. And we do have there's the you can get it on your Kindle and those types of devices as well as physical. I don't know. I still love to read physical stuff mostly. I spend too much time on the internet reading stuff. So when I can get a physical book or physical comic.
There's something about having a physical book in your hands that just feels better than I do own a Kindle and I read on my Kindle as well. But there's something about having a physical book in your hand that just
I love to read stuff before bed too, and it's really not best to read on digital devices with a lot of that too. And so it's me like looking at a real comic or reading a book. I don't know. Actually, the book has made me the book has probably cost me more than we've made on that book with just making me buy more comics and more of that. You see my Twitter, the comic book community on Twitter is very supportive of each other. The other time I was talking about a deal I got for a graded book and I was like, I don't know if I should stop buying these. And they're like, no,
don't do it.
Great deals. It's definitely worth it. And I was like, my wife doesn't feel the same way, but and then I bought some more. So,
obviously.
They're cool to have. But
They are cool to have. That is for sure. Well, Gordon, thank you again so much for joining us. It has been a blast.
Yeah, it's been a great discussion.
And thank you, listeners, for joining us for our Oscar recap and a little deeper look into Gordon's book, Leaders Assemble, Leadership in the MCU. You can check us out on theinfinitybros.com or any other social media platform. You can email us at infinitybrospodcast@gmail.com. Wherever you're listening, however you're listening, thank you so much for making us a part of your podcast experience. We love you 3000. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Infinity Bros podcast. You can find the Infinity Bros on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Twitch, and YouTube at the Infinity Bros. Hey, you can also check out our website at theinfinitybros.com for links, reviews, and that sweet merch. Feel free to send listener feedback via social media or email us at infinitybrospodcast@gmail.com.